Good morning, I'm Kat from Bandicoot Design Canberra and welcome to my 100-day project video log. Unfortunately, when I filmed this yesterday, it was a complete disaster. It was the first time I'd actually filmed anything for a video and using my phone, which is old and a little bit on the decrepit side, and half the time I went off shot. Half the time I stumbled over my words and the rest of the time was just a complete mess. So I'm actually going to redo the square that I did from yesterday. Now, to start off with, the 100-day project is a creative project. So for 100 days, you commit to do something creative each day. And for mine, I decided that I was going to do 100 different patterned squares to create a blanket or a bedspread done in crochet. Now, I've been crocheting for about 30 odd years, but I've never actually gotten around to making a massive patchwork blanket or bedspread, or because they just are very time consuming. They take a lot of time, a lot of preparation, and a damn sight lot of yarn. So I've decided that this was a really good project to do to do one different pattern each day for the next 100 days, all including yesterday, remembering that we're in Australia, so we're a day ahead of everyone else, so our project started yesterday, not today. Now, to start with, my project is, as I said, 100 different patterns. I'll show you yesterday's square. I am looking at doing crocheted patches. We'll have a look at yesterday's, that are all going to be 40 stitches aside, approximately 40 stitches aside, depending on the pattern, and it's going to end up with a large 10 by 10 blanket. Now, hopefully this won't be so large that it's ridiculous, but it will be pretty damn big. So yesterday's pattern was doing starburst granny squares. As I said, my attempt at video recording this yesterday was a complete and utter disaster. So before I start on today's squares, which will be much more challenging, I hope, or maybe not, before starting on today's squares, I'm actually going to redo one of the squares from this pattern for you, and I will use a different yarn to do this with. So the yarn I'm using for this is Spotlight's Big Saver yarn. It's a 200-gram ball of acrylic yarn, and it's actually closer, probably about 10 or 12 ply. The wool I'm going to demonstrate with today is an 8 ply wool, so it's just a little bit thinner, but I'm still going to use, I used a 5mm crochet hook on that, so I'm still going to use a 5mm crochet hook on these today. So let's pull out some yarn. Actually didn't get these balls prepared. I should have made sure I got the knots out of them first. So just going to start off with my 5mm crochet hook. Now, before you start going, what on earth is wrong with this crochet hook? I have permanent nerve damage in both of my hands, so I'm unable to use a crochet hook just on its own. I have to use one that's got a handle or a very substantial grip on it just to be able to hold onto the hook. So I have a couple of different ones of these. You can buy them fairly easily. I've got a couple of those. So if we look at these, this one is fantastic, except for the shape's a bit odd. But you can actually swap out the crochet hooks from your smallest 1-2mm hooks right through up to 6mm. So this one actually has a 6mm hook that really, to be honest, lives inside this. I don't take it out and replace it. For those of you who do have challenging hands or arthritis and still want to be able to keep crochet, things like this are essential, but they do get expensive. So I discovered that you could just buy yarn twine. I was actually discovered this watching videos on Ari embroidery and watching the guy doing that, and he had wound his hooks with just string, and so I bought a whole lot of cotton twine, and a lot of my hooks I've just built up around the handles, and each one's different, so I know which hook it is because it does cover up the size of your hook. And I've just constantly gone round and round in the twine, and then it's just knotted with a lot of heart stitches, sometimes sewn through a bit to hold that in place. It's not moving. thing to be aware of if you're going to go that route is to leave enough room at the end of your crochet hook. This one's a little bit tight, but I don't actually use the 5mm hook very often, so I'm not too worried about it being a little bit short. So to get back to this square pattern, the range of stitches on this square pattern is fairly large, and I'm going to try today to remember to use a single set of terminology for describing the stitches. I actually was raised using a blend of both British and US terminology, so my terminology in my head is completely different to what the actual standard terminology is. So I will do my best. If I make a mistake, I will add text to the footage so that you can actually see what it should have been and what I should have said. So the stitches today that we're covering will be treble stitch, double crochet, half double, single crochet, slip stitch and chain, which we're always going to be looking at. And the pattern I'm looking at also has toggle 2 treble crochet together as well as toggle 3 double crochet together. So to start off with, I'm going to start with a magic ring. If you don't like using a magic ring, you could start off with chain 10, chain 10, and then slip stitch the chain together to create a circle. I just happen to really like using the magic ring. I find it a lot easier to be able to do. I also find that it is a lot easier to manipulate the diameter of the ring as you're working. So I start off with the ring, and I'm just going to put in a locking stitch so that doesn't move. So for the first round of the pattern, it's going to be 12 toggle 2 treble crochets together. So the first one, to get to that point, we need to chain 4. So go 1, 2, 3, and I'm just going to pause at the third one for a moment because we know at the end of this round that we're going to have to join these stitches together, or this round together, back at this point. So to make sure that I get my joiner in the right place, and also to make it easier to get the hook through into the right stitch, I'm just going to put a stitch marker here. So what will happen is this loop will end up over the stitch marker on the 4th chain, and then I can use the stitch marker to guide my hook through that chain when I come to join at the end. You can use yarn as a stitch marker as well, which I do often if I'm doing anamaguri, but at the moment for this I'm just happy to use a plastic marker. So we do our 4th chain, which is going to make our first treble crochet. So for the next one, remembering we're doing 2 together, and the first one won't quite be together until you do some stitching at the end. 2 yarn over 2 through the center of your magic circle or your 10 chain loop, yarn over 2, yarn over 2, and because it's only 2 together and this is the first one, we will go through that final 2. So we have a chain 4 as our first treble crochet, and then the treble crochet, that's our first stitch. After that, chain 2, so 1, 2, try not to let that stitch marker get in your way, which is one of the issues of using them. Yarn over 2, then back into your circle, pull the yarn up, yarn through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2, and then stop before you pull through the last 2 because these two will be toggled together properly. So yarn over twice, through the circle, getting a little bit messy here, aren't I? Pull through 2, pull through 2, and then this time you should have 3 loops on your hook at the end. Pull through all 3 to make them toggle together. Just let me tidy up this yarn a bit. Tighten that. I think one of the reasons a lot of people don't like the magic circle is that it's actually, if you're not paying attention, you can lose this loop through your work and then you've got to start all over again, whereas with a chain that's joined, that doesn't happen. So 2 chain, and we're going to do another 2 treble toggle together. So yarn over twice, look into the circle, pull through 2, pull through 2, yarn over twice again before you pull through the last 2 to get the second one on. Pull through 2, pull through 2, and then pull through all 3 loops on the hook and chain twice. I'm going to keep doing this. I will fast forward the video at the end because you don't need to watch me do all of them. If you want to slow it down, depending on your YouTube settings, you should be able to slow it down if you do need to watch me do that again. I'm just going to keep going. So, through 2 and through 2, yarn over twice. Through 2, through 2, through the last 3, chain 2. Just keep an eye on where that ring's going. Yarn over twice. Through 2, through 2, yarn over twice. Trying to keep this on screen has been a challenge, which was half of my problem with yesterday's footage, and as I said, it was a complete disaster. Although I have to introduce you to Jack. This is Jack. Just let me finish this stitch. Jack is an eastern bandicoot, and bandicoots are a native animal to Australia. He's gorgeous. He is here to make sure, and he was here yesterday, but I didn't have a bottom board here. He's here to try and help me make sure that I stay in the centre of the shot for you. And you can see on his back, oh, try and find some light where you can see the bands on his back and on the sides of his legs. But he's a little bit lazy. He likes to lie around most of the time, but he's also really curious and likes to get his nose stuck into things. Jack just sits there, depending on what he's doing. So what have we got? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we want 7 more. So through 2, through 2. Pull out some more yarn. Hoping by the end of this process, I will get to the point that I've sorted out enough tricks on trying to crochet at the same time as videoing this, that it won't be quite so disjointed and all over the shop. Pull through the last 3, chain 2. I'm also going to see if I can do this without too many retakes, which I had to do so many yesterday, and then at the end it was going to take longer to edit the video. Sorry, drop that one there. It was going to take longer to edit the video than it was to just do it all over again. 3, 2, 2, yarn over. So it doesn't matter how long you've been doing this. Said I've been doing this for 30 years. We still make mistakes. It's not that hard to make a mistake. It's picking up the mistakes when you've made them that I find is more challenging. You get used to picking them up. Hopefully you pick up your mistakes before you get to the next round and have to frog a whole lot of crochet. Frogging your work is frustrating, but we all end up doing it. 3, 2, back over, 3, 2, through 2, through the last 3 on the hook, 2, sorry, I'm trying not to go off screen again. Some more yarn. Usually I have my yarn all in, I have yarn bags. And I have my yarn in a yarn bag off to the left, hanging off the side of a chair. Some fluff will get rid of that. and it doesn't get in the way, it feeds through a lot easier. Two, through two, without splitting that yarn, through the last two, chain two. Are we at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 2 more to go. So this is number 11. And then last one, 2, through 2, over twice, through 2, through 2, through the final 3, and chain 2. Now we have all 12 on, we can tighten this circle up. I'm not going to try and cinch it entirely closed. There are 24 stitches on here. To cinch that closed, you're going to end up with a large amount of bulk. So I'm going to tighten it, and I'll probably end up tightening it a couple of times throughout making the square. And when I get to the end of the patch, what I will do is I will make sure it's tight enough that the patch sits completely flat. Because as it stretches out, it's going to buckle. So I'll make sure it's tight enough, the patch will sit flat, it won't be completely cinched through to nothing with this many stitches on here. And to try will just make the work look buckled, it won't make it look very good. So now we need to stitch this back into the 4th chain from our base at the beginning. Now because I've got this stitch marker here, you can see the stitch marker has left a really nice space. If I bring it up here so that you can see. So let me get rid of the hook for a moment. So see that the stitch marker has left a really good space in that chain stitch. Often it's really easy to forget that you've got to crochet back into this and make your chain stitches too tight. And when you've got to join or slip a stitch in through there, it gets really difficult. So whilst yarn would work in most circumstances, or if I was doing anamaguri, for this particular job, yarn is going to actually not help keep that as a wide open space. So with the stitch marker in, I'm just going to slide over the stitch marker and into the same space that the stitch marker is left. Then I'm going to pull out the marker because I don't need it there anymore. Put it off to the side. Then I can pull through as a slip stitch through both, and it's joined together at the top of that 4 chain section there. Now if I was continuing in this colour, I would then slip stitch to this stitch through here, if you can see that, to this one here, and then I would chain up 3. But because I'm changing colours, rather than try and do a colour change on this square and have to bring it in through where I would have brought the slip stitch, I'm just going to cut off this yarn here and pull that through and finish with that colour completely. And then, if we lay that out, just try and move this forward, see that we have a really nice, almost a flaming sun circle for the first row of the pattern. And I'll just get rid of that one. So for the second row, as you can see, bring up the second row of the pattern, or the second round, is going to be toggle 3 double crochet together with a 3 chain space in between each one, and they're going into the chain space of this sun in the middle. So to do that, we're going to first get another colour. So just going to go with blue for this one. So we've got blue, and I am going to move it off to this side because I'm finding it challenging, as I said, to actually get the yarn from across the table from me. So I'm just going to pull it off from here. So we've got the blue yarn, And I'm just going to set it up first. How you hold your yarn is completely up to you. Everyone's different. I like, if I'm doing, for most things, I will use my middle finger to wrap it around over my index finger, and I hold it and the crochet, or it initially, in between my middle finger and my thumb, so that I can then hook through and pull up the piece. Because we're going through a, let's choose the top of a treble. I'm actually going to start here so all of my stitches are roughly in the same place, starting and ending in the same place. So I'm going to go through the top of this treble 2 together, remembering that our chain stitch over here is the first of that. And I'm just going to pull that through on the hook. Whoops. I will try to pull that through on the hook. And then I'm holding the back of that yarn, and I'm holding the piece I'm working on between my middle finger and thumb. So I said, everyone's different. We're going to chain 3, remembering before that third stitch that I'm going to put the stitch marker in, so that when we get back to this end to join the piece, I can put the hook in through under this third stitch. So the third stitch in. I'm going to undo all of that, and because it's meant to be in the space, not in the top of the treble. So I'll do that one again. My apologies. So through the space, there we go. Chain 2, marker in place. Anyone would think I didn't spend hours chaining this pattern yesterday and doing it up. Chain the third stitch, so you've got your double crochet place, and we're going to do toggle 3 double crochet together in this two chain space. And for the rest of this, I'm going to chain over, or sorry, stitch over the tails of the ends of this yarn. Now it's not going to hold it completely because we've only got 2 more stitches, and I like a lot more than 2 stitches to hold my yarn in place, but it will keep it from budging as we're working, and it will be just enough to hold it in place until the end, and then I'll weave it in. So toggle 3 double crochet together, so we've yarned over, pulled through once on the hook for the second one, leaving the last 2 on the hook, yarn over through the chain space, pull through 2, because this is the first one and our chain stitches are creating the first double crochet. I'm going to pull this through the 3 loops on the hook now, and then chain 3 to get to the next space. So on this one, because we're not using the chain stitch, all 3 double crochets will be toggled together. So yarn over into the space, pull through 2, stop and leave the last 2 on the hook, and then do it again. Yarn over, bring it through, pull through 2 and leave the last 3 stitches on your hook, yarn over, come back, pull through 2, and you should have 4 stitches on your hook at the end of toggling 3 together. Pull through all 4 stitches and then chain 3. 2, 3. I'm going to do that in every 2 chain space of the previous round until we get back to the end. I'm going to keep going. I'll meet you back there. Okay, we're almost at the end. There is 1 more double crochet 2 together to go. Just going to chain in the last one, and then we'll be on to the next round. So 2, 3, toggle them together, chain 3, and again this is where we're going to go into the 3rd chain from the bottom into slip stitch these together. So I'm going to follow that stitch marker through, And I'm finished with the marker for now, so I'm just going to slip that off, slip stitch through. Now because I've finished with this colour, I'm changing colours again. I'm going to cut this and start with another colour. If you were continuing in this colour, you would then need to this time slip stitch into this spot here, and then you would chain 2 up for the next row. But we're going to finish here. Just undo that one. I'm going to finish it here, so we'll cut this off. So at the end of round 2, we've got our bright orange sun, and again in a sky blue circle. That was not intentional, but that's what we've got. The third row of this is going to take this pattern from a circle into a square. So it will add in the 4 corners. So I'm going to use green. Trying to stick reasonably closely to what I had crocheted yesterday when I was doing it. And yesterday I used 4 of these to make up a size patch that was large enough for the blanket that I'm doing. And rather than just use one colour for this second round, I did alternate colours on the second round. I just want to bring some colour. I want this blanket to be intense and bright and vibrant. Excuse me. So starting in with our third colour on the third round. Again, just get that set up. This time, I'll get this right. This time we are going to take this into the top of this toggle 3 together. So I'm going to go in here, just make sure I've got that yarn. I'm going to pull that through, and I'm going to chain 2 for a half double crochet. Then I'm going to put in my stitch marker when I find what I've done with it here, because this is the point where at the end of this round we need to slip stitch them together. So this is standing in for a half double crochet and then chain 3, 2, 3. Now we're going to skip this chain space and the top of this double crochet 3 together, and we're going to go into the second chain space, and we're going to do it again, toggle 3 double crochet together. So yarn over through the space, pull through 2, leave the last 2 on your hook, through the space, pull through 2, again through the space, pull through 2, then pull through all 4 loops on your hook, chain 2. Then we're going to do this again. So yarn over into the space, pull through 2, leave the last 2 on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over to the space, pull through 2, and then pull through all 4 loops on your hook. So that's one side. Now we're going to chain 4 for the corner. 3, 4, and then we're going to do another 2 double crochet 3 together into the same space. So I'm just going to move these down a little bit so there's some room. Yarn over into the space, yarn, pull through 2, leave 2 on the hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, pull through all 4 loops on the hook, chain 2, and then one more double crochet 3 together into the same space, pull through 2. I've been thinking that I should have Jack counting my mistakes. Every time I say the wrong stitch name, for example, or every blooper I make, could be interesting, and have a little speech bubble somewhere for Jack. Pull through the last 4 hoop loops. From here, we're going down into the top of this double crochet 3 together. We're going to chain 3 to get there. 2, 3. And this is the same as our starting chain. So this is going to be a half double crochet. So over the hook, yarn over, through the stitch, pull through all 3 loops on your hook for a half double. I always find this stitch particularly fiddly. Then we want to get to the next corner, so chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Skip the next space. So all of your corners are in a 3 chain space. The sides are into the top of a double crochet 3 together. So we're going to skip this space, skip this double crochet 3 together, and go into the next space along with another double crochet 3 together. So yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over into the space, pull through 2, yarn over into the space, pull through 2, pull through all 4 on the hook, chain 2, and then we do it again. That's one of them. I'm going to keep going, and I'll fast forward the video and meet you back where we come just before we start to join in to the end of this round. Okay, so we've got them back to the end. This is the last corner, and I'll just need to slip stitch this into the second chain at the beginning of the round. Again, use the stitch marker to go into that chain space or into that chain stitch. Remove the marker because it's not necessary anymore. Try and make my hands cooperate to do this. Slip stitch, preferably without losing the stitch or splitting the yarn. Slip stitch this through. Again, this is the end of this colour, so I'm going to stop there. If I was going to continue using the same colour, the next row is just single crochets all the way around. So I would do a a chain stitch and then single crochet into this space, and to continue that all the way the way around the square. I'm just going to cut that colour off. So we're done with that one. Finish that off there. And you can see, let me tidy that up a bit. We now have, instead of having a circle, we now have a square. So we've got our 4 corners, 4 sides. I'll just lift that up, so bring it up here. And just starting to look pretty good. Now, because my pattern requirements are for my quilt, or for this blanket, that each of my final squares needs to be approximately 40 stitches wide in each direction. So 40 stitches up, 40 stitches down. What I've done with this is currently 19 stitches across. Sorry, I've knocked the tripod. And I needed 4 of these to be able to get to a size that's big enough for my square. But I also needed to make sure that when I put these together, that I didn't end up with too many stitches. I can't really go over 40. So what I've done is, from this point, I've done the next 4 squares. I did the next 4 squares before doing any further rounds around the edge. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to show it very clearly on this. These I've crocheted together as I've done each square. So on this final round, in these chain spaces as I've gone, I've slip stitched the squares together so that they're joined totally. And then you can see they're also joined in the middle before doing the final round on this pattern for this square. Now I'm actually running out of video time, just looking, this has been 45 minutes almost. So the outside of this square is very simple. The last round is just single crochet in every space and in every stitch. And the third round, or the final round, is a 3 chain with a single crochet in every third stitch. So skip 2, single crochet 3, chain 3, skip 2. And in the corner spaces, I've got chain 3 in each corner space. I will show you this on tomorrow's patch, or the one that I will end up doing later today. I'll show you this border, and this is what will join, or what will be used to join all of the patches in this big blanket together. So they'll be joined with a braid join, using these 3 chain loops on the side. So that is the basis for that square, or the base pattern for that square. Said I'm not going to do an outside on here because that I'll show you how to do that in the next video. Thank you for watching. If you found this video at all helpful, please click the like button. If you want to continue watching the videos, please click subscribe. I know this is the only one up there so far, but there shall be more. It's a 100-day project, and my project is doing 100 different patterned crochet squares that are going to become one very large blanket. So there's 100 more days, well, not quite, 99 more days now left to go, and 99 different patterns for patchwork squares. Have a great day, and I will see you later. Thank you for joining me.